Hey guys, welcome back to our podcast. Today we're going to talk all about worldviews. So my name is Allie, and I'm joined by two amazing guests. So we have Caleb.
Hey.
And Drew.
Hello, hello.
Guys, we're going to play a fun little game. Start us off with something fun and funky and fresh.
Funky and fresh?
I like it.
Okay, so here's the name of the game. It doesn't have a name, so it's not really a name of the game. But here's the objective of the game. That's more what I wanted to say. On these little cards that I have, there's pictures of words or things, and you have to tell me what you call that thing.
Oh, this is going to be fun. All right.
There might be a little friendly debate, or if we're all the same, it'll be incredibly boring. So we'll see.
Here we go.
Okay.
Okay, are you ready for the first one?
Yeah.
Okay, this is what it is. I hope you guys actually know what it is.
Pecan.
Okay, you say pecan.
Pecan.
Oh, okay. I say pecan or I say pecan pie.
Don't say pecan.
What
That's
did he-
wrong.
Only with pie you say pecan?
Yeah, I don't know why.
So you're eating pecans as soon as they go in a circle. Pecan.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Pecan's definitely wrong. Don't say that.
Someone the other day said some other version of it. Okay, this is maybe won't be wildly debated, but could be. This is not a lobster, to preface. Dude,
Crawdad,
oh, okay.
right? Isn't that a crawdad?
I'm good with crawdad, yeah.
I call them crayfish.
Oh.
Or crawfish.
Oh, maybe that's not a crawdad then.
Isn't,
I don't know.
No, they're all like the same thing.
I lived in the South for far too long, so
I mean, Where the Crawdads Sing is a book.
Oh, that's true.
And a movie.
yeah, that's true. Okay.
Probably influenced by that, yeah.
I feel really self-conscious right now that I don't know things.
It's like a lobster.
Well, I
Small lobster.
have been the one that has said the words wrong every single time. Also, fun fact, I used to have pet crayfish. I would catch them in the stream and then put them in fish tanks.
What do you feed them?
Fish food?
All right.
Oh, okay. I just
I
learned.
know.
Yeah, really, really fun. If you put your finger near them, they'll shoot backwards and do backflips. That's what my childhood was like. You can dissect that later if you want. Okay. I hope you guys know what this is.
Caramel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I say caramel. I know what you're looking for.
Don't say caramel.
I don't say caramel.
I don't say
Good.
caramel. I know that would make the game better, but I don't say that.
No,
It's like
I think that's vastly wrong. Okay, I'm going to have to explain this one. This is snow. I know that you guys know that this is snow.
Ground.
But what do you call it when the snow stays on the ground for the first time?
It sticks.
Winter.
Sticks.
Yes.
There's another thing that other people say.
When the snow stays on the ground for the first time. The
It sticks.
first snow?
No, there's also some people say lay, like the snow
No.
lays.
No.
I got into a wild debate with one of my friends about that.
No,
What do you
just
say?
Snow. If I say,
Just
Oh, look at that snow out there. All right.
so
yes.
the snow just snows on your car.
Oh, the snow. What does the snow do on? It's on my car.
Yeah. Dude, the conversation always, the first snow happens, and you need to know if it sticks for school the next day, because you hope
Yeah,
to get
it
Yeah.
sticks.
for
Oh, okay. So you say sticks.
Okay, there we go.
Boom.
It
Some
snowed.
Persuasive.
some people say lay, and
Yeah, I don't think I do that.
Yeah.
I need better words.
it sounds really weird. The snow just snowed. The snow wintered.
It came down.
Okay. What is this store?
Oh, see, wise.
Wise? You say
Yeah.
wise?
Wise.
Yeah.
Not Weiss or we is?
People don't say that.
They do.
No, they don't.
Yeah, they do.
I've heard Weiss.
I don't like Weiss.
I
But
hate that.
The
yeah.
commercial
That's the
corrected
worst.
me to Wise.
So you did say Weiss.
Yeah, when I first moved here. So I'm not originally from Pennsylvania. I'm from upstate New York. So I came down and saw that. And then I was taught to read by phonics, which is like sounding out letters.
Basically, I know how to read.
And so I looked at it and was like, Weiss. And that became Weiss in our house.
I'm trying to think the last time I heard someone that didn't say wise.
But then
3
the commercial
days
came
ago.
out.
There it is. I believe you.
Commercial came out Wise.
I don't know if I've ever seen a commercial
Same. I've never seen
for
one.
There's
for
a
Wise.
jingle.
A jingle?
Yeah.
Please sing it right now.
What's the first? It's like, save more. That's Wise or something like that.
That was really good, actually. Nailed
There's
it.
a reason I'm not on the worship team.
Well, you have a microphone in front of you now for this reason.
We'll just talk on the podcast.
Okay, so that was a little intro, but also sort of not completely about what we're talking today. But I think you even said this, like you grew up not here. So that makes, well, and you didn't really like grow up here.
A little north, yeah.
I also didn't grow up here. We're in Lancaster
Canada?
County. This isn't my county.
I'm Canadian.
I'm not that far north. Okay, good.
But where you live and your parents and the values that you were surrounded by will influence your worldview. So today we were talking all about worldviews. So another question to really start us off. Do you guys remember, I don't even know, it was maybe like 2016, 2017. There was like all of those like wildly debated. There was the gold and white dress.
Oh, I can't do that one.
Oh, yeah.
And the vans that were two different colors, and
Yep.
the Yanny and Laurel that you could hear.
I just want to understand it. Like, people would say you could look at it different or something like that. I don't even know. I don't know.
I think someone
just argue with
found
people.
the dress like in a store and was like, it's blue. And then that ended everything.
Did they? I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know.
I think I could still, it depended on the day. Like I could see it both ways. And the Yanny and Laurel thing, like do you guys remember that?
I remember yelling at people about that, honestly.
But like, why did you yell at
It's
people about it?
Like, yeah.
What'd you think it was?
I could not understand how to hear it the other way. I heard Laurel, I think, if I remember it right.
Yeah, I think I heard Laurel because I didn't. Yanny's not a
And they're so
word.
different. Like, yeah, nope.
So
But it's weird, right? Because we so thought that we were right. Like I was like, no, why would Vans make teal and gray shoes? I would buy them, but why would they do that? They must be pink and white. And then you just start yelling at people over it, which that doesn't make any sense because that's just what you think is different than what your friends think. So why do you guys think it's our like first natural instinct just to defend what we believe or think is right?
I think there's something to all of us kind of have this natural disposition to make sense of what's around us. In the moment that someone suggests something different than how you've made sense of it, like that can almost start to feel like an attack on you rather than an attack or, like a conversation about an idea. And mixing those things together can get, even when it's something simple like that, it's like, no, that's what I heard or that's what I saw. We have a hard time kind of breaking out of those pathways of thinking or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
that changed my answer. I agree.
Oh.
I was going to just say selfishness. Like there's just something about being right. But I think that there is that. I don't know if we always think through what is the foundation of why I believe what I believe. I think sometimes we're just like, oh, I believe that because it's true. And then if that's challenged and it's not solid, then it can be really scary when you're like, oh, wait, I'm not quite sure. So even something like goofy and funny, like, oh, what color's the dress? Or what color are the Vans? Or what's this word? But when it's like something that's deeply personal, I think that can be scary.
I think, like, at least looking back in my life, the times that I have been challenged on what I believe is the times that, like, I know that then what I believe is true. Because if I was never challenged, I'd be like, yeah, maybe it's right. But every time I get challenged, I'm like, no, this is what I believe. Here's the facts to back it up. Like, I could have an argument or a conversation about this for, like, 2 hours if you wanted to. But if I didn't, like, I probably wouldn't have done research or, like, thought about it or even been able to present the facts in a certain way. I didn't do that about a dress.
But there are people that like went out and found the dress. Like
Yeah.
almost like good for them.
Or, yeah, like and I think there was, like, people that studied sound that were like, this is why you're hearing it a certain way because your brain wants to use, like, this part of your brain or that part. Meanwhile, I was just like, Yanny.
That was me.
Laurel.
That was me.
Just kept listening to it, hoping something was going to change. It never did. So we are talking all about worldviews today. So that's not like a phrase we just like throw out every day, common language. So what is a worldview? That's a big question.
I think there's a couple ways to think about it. The most like reduced down way that I'll oftentimes think about is a mixture of your beliefs and your values, and it's kind of those two things coming together. So like I was saying before, everyone seeks to make sense of what's around them. And when you mix together, here's what I believe about what's around me, and then here's what I care about what's around me, you start to kind of come together and make a worldview. At least that's how I often think of it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I've heard of talked about like wearing a pair of glasses and you have different lenses. And I think those lenses probably are the two things you just said of like the beliefs and the values that you have. But then I think as you experience life or meet someone that has a different worldview than you do, and you start seeing things a little different, you can like put different lenses on those glasses, and it starts changing the way you see things. And that can be really positive and helps you
uncomfortable.
grow. Really uncomfortable too. But also it can be really shaky. That foundation that we talked about a little earlier, if that's not solid, all of a sudden you put a different lens in your eyes, and the thing that you thought was true turns out not to be true. Oh my goodness, that can be really shaky.
Yeah, because then if that thing's connected to other beliefs that you hold, then all of a sudden you need to trace it back to all those other things and start to kind of peel back the layers of everything, and then you're, whew,
Yeah.
it's a lot to think through, but it's so good.
Onion.
An
Peeling
onion
back.
of belief. That's a worldview.
Wow.
All right, Shrek.
Hey, I thought I liked
Great
it.
movie. Great movie, by the way.
Great. Are you shouting out Shrek?
Yes, I am.
When or have you guys ever experienced a time where someone has almost like challenged your worldview or tried to convince you that what you believed wasn't true or wasn't right, or they were like, I don't understand why you just can't think the same way that I have?
Yeah. On big levels, on small levels, probably more on like small individual issue kind of things. And probably a lot of my favorite conversations were those kinds of talks that I have with friends that have been close to me, that we'll talk about something that we disagree on, but there's like a mutual respect there that you can have a really constructive dialogue in a way that it's safe for me to kind of peel back the layers of what I believe, and it's safe for them to peel back the layers of what they believe. But yeah, absolutely, for sure.
Yeah, I don't even know if it's been like an individual that's like, you said this, let me challenge your thinking. I think traveling has been so eye-opening of like even just getting out of my little bubble, or even just like the country we live in, and just seeing that there's other ways of thinking and doing things that don't make it right or wrong. So even something as silly as, in England, we would say they drive on the wrong side of the road. No, it's not the wrong side. It's not right or wrong.
Well, we literally drive on the right side.
Oh, I see what you did there because of like words in the English language. Thank you, English language. But
Got him.
but that idea of like, oh, they just drive on the other
opposite,
side,
yeah.
a different side. It takes that right and wrong out of it. So even just little things like that can start really changing. Hey, is everything as black and white as we think it is? And what does need to be black and white? Like, what is this truth that is true?
Yeah.
And then what are the other areas that we're like, hey, I think this is just maybe just cultural differences, or differences in the way we grew up, or the regions we grew up. So I think that's probably where I've been challenged the most.
And as you have those conversations, it's cool too, because again, if they're constructive, you can talk about whether it's a fundamental belief that's different, or whether we do mostly believe the same thing, but how we would apply it looks differently, and that starts to shift the conversation as well.
Yeah, like we can joke about like the color of a dress or these words, but like when you talk about is beauty in the eye of the beholder, oh my goodness, like that's something that's like so much deeper than just like, it's blue, it's silver. Yeah. Like, no, I think that's something that even gets to the heart of the person of, hey, how do we define beauty? How do we define love? How do we feel love? Like these things are
Go in there.
a hard thing. Oh, we're there.
Good question.
You just got so deep so quick. When you said even just like traveling, like I went to college an hour and a half away from here, but I remember there was so many people from different sections of the country, and I was like just constantly challenged because people would be like, oh yeah, I did this, or like we did this in my church, and I'm like, what? Like how did that work? Or like, why did you do that? Like, why did you get your permit at 14? Like, that makes no sense. But they did. And it really just allowed a lot of conversations to be had, which then you like learned things. And I remember even talking to my roommate for like hours, because she grew up in a family that was 2 Christian parents, and I grew up in a family that was just 1. So there was like even a lot of things that like, I'm Christian, she's Christian, like we didn't pray before meals. Like that wasn't like an important value in my family. Right. So now like sometimes I'll even like we'll have like staff meetings and we'll eat, and I just start eating, and then I'm like, let me remember to pray. But like it's not almost like ingrained in my brain to do that. And I remember even having a conversation with one of the other staff members at our campus, just about prayer, and we had such different values of it and where prayer fit into our life, because she grew up Catholic, so that was very different. And then I grew up like in a family that was like half and half. So it wasn't this like public thing. It was this very like private thing for me, where for her it was like, we do this at every single meal. We make it like this big thing. I was like, yeah, it just doesn't like feel right to me sometimes. So that like allowed for a really interesting conversation then about like even what prayer looks like in our own lives now, now that we're like solid in our faith. But have you guys ever been challenged as Christians on your worldview?
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is yeah. The first times that I can remember really needing to work through some of that stuff, I was in high school, and I can remember hanging out with my friends, and grew up a pastor's kid, so had like one church influence growing up, and had a lot of friends that were Catholic. And I can remember, certainly this doesn't embody all of Catholicism, but we were sitting around a campfire one time, and they were talking about their plans for a Saturday night and some of the dumb things that they were going to do. And they're like, yeah, like we'll just go to confession the next day and it's all good. And that like fired up my head. I was like, no, wait a second. And then, all of a sudden you start to, ask a lot of questions and really start to form like what is underneath that statement that you just said, and then kind of firing back, because then I had to defend what I believe too. So it was comparing what I grew up with, and I took for granted the fact that like, hey, like, no, not everyone does have your upbringing. There are other people that think differently. And that was probably my first couple of experiences.
It's funny, like the filters we get on our worldview lens,
Yeah.
or our glasses, the lenses that are in our glasses, like that conversation, that just added something to your eyes of like how you viewed your friends and how they grew up, and how's that different than me? It may have been, man, I wish I was a deep thinker like you were in high school. I'm trying to think if I thought that well that far back. I don't think I did. The first one that came to mind is when I was in college. And we were talking about this idea of when you meet someone or you interact with a different worldview or someone with even a different like religious background, and it's such a terrible phrase, like, do you throw the baby out with the bathwater? Which, like, why out of all the things that there is some good and some things that maybe we shouldn't keep? That's the phrase we use. But it was this idea of like looking at even different religions and being like, is there something about that maybe there's not the core like objective truth in it, but is there something about what they do that's going to help me in following Jesus? And that was like rocked my world of like, can I look at someone who just believes so differently, maybe doesn't even believe in the God that I believe in, they believe in a different God, what they do or how they live or what they believe, how can that help me follow Jesus better? And so like we even think of one of the examples was people of like the Islamic faith, their devotion to prayer, just that like at this time of day, my entire day revolves around praying. Being like, man, as a follower of Jesus, I don't know if I could say that my entire day revolves around prayer. And so I think that helped filter some of my worldview of that thinking of, hey, I think there's something from a lot of different people that can help me follow Jesus better, but make sure that it's helping me follow Jesus.
Yeah. I mean, if you have enough humility, I feel like you can learn something from just about anybody. And again, like you said, it's not necessarily changing your foundational beliefs, but even like just what you were saying in application, like you valued prayer, but because of something you learned from someone else, you might change how you see that or how you practice that in a really healthy way. So,
well, I think that's just like anytime you get to know any other culture, you're going to pick something out that is like, man, like they really just don't care about time. Like they're just on their own schedule. Like I wish we could do that here, but we're like, 20 minutes, I have to be there. And then it's going to be an hour and a half at the grocery store because someone's going to talk to me. I don't know. I don't go to the grocery store that often to have people talk to me. But like we're so like on time schedules that I remember the one time I went somewhere and they were just like, oh yeah, maybe like we'll leave the beach at like 7 and get dinner like later. And I'm like, 7? Like I needed to have dinner at like 6 o'clock on the dot. Like I don't know what's going on anymore.
Allie can't wait an hour.
No, I can't. I will get hangry.
Literally on my way here, someone approached me and they wanted to say something to me. And I was like, I have to be somewhere in 4 minutes. You can walk with me. And I was like, wow, like I think about that now. I was like, what in the world? Like it's not that big a deal. But yeah, it's that time consciousness you're talking about.
Well, even that like that changes our day and our interaction with that person.
Right.
Walking and they're like, oh, okay, he's a
Like,
busy boy.
You're a person. I can value you. Like, okay.
But like, I think I do that with Jesus. Like I do that like, all right, I've got 15 minutes before I have to go to work, or when I was in high school, hey, before I go to school, like, so I'm gonna read my Bible, but I need to eat breakfast at the same time. But I can give Jesus 15 minutes today, and that felt pretty good. But then you're like, like, why am I not abiding in him? Why am I not staying connected with him throughout the day? Why does it have to be this like, I'm there, it's quick, I've got 10 minutes today, let's do it. I'm in, I'm out, and then I move on with my day. So yeah, I think learning that from other people and other cultures, I think it could just change the way that we abide in Jesus too.
Well, and probably if you took like a step back from your life, like you were like looking at it from like 1,000 feet up, you would see the things that like you value. So it'd be like your family and your friends and your dogs or your sport or something. I don't know.
Love how dogs are in third place there.
Yeah.
Family, friends, dogs.
Dogs are great. They're so
good.
cute. But like, I wonder, laugh at me, dogs are cute.
Yeah, they're great.
Okay. It doesn't have a dog.
I don't.
Okay, that's obvious. I wonder how many times people like see that and they don't always see like Jesus in the picture because they're not placing Jesus as at such a high value as like all those other things in their life, which can be really hard because I think a lot of people are constantly challenged on that. And if you're challenged on, I'm waking up, I'm going to school, I'm finishing my homework that I didn't finish last night because I got home from practice really late, and I didn't even get to eat dinner, but I wanted to spend time talking to my friends on Discord because that's more important to me than homework and focusing on Jesus, and maybe even talking to my family, but my friends is what I'm valuing right now. Like, that just shakes everything up.
Yeah. One of the questions that I like to ask myself sometimes that's super challenging for me is if someone were just to follow me around everywhere that I went, like throughout a day, and at the end of the day were to like write down, hey, this is what I think you value in order, what would those things be? Because it's one thing to say, hey, here's what I'm about, here's what I want to do, here's what I value. It's a whole other thing to actually live that out. And oftentimes there's a disconnect for me, and I need to kind of shake them out a little bit. So
it's probably a good test of what your worldview is. It's sometimes so hard to know what my worldview is, and not that we even like put a label on it, like, oh, I'm this worldview, like, but even just the things we value because we're in it and we're just like, oh, that's something I want, and so you just go and do it, or you go and buy it. Yeah. But an outside perspective of it may even just be something to ask someone that's close to you of like, what do you think's most important to me? Right. And it may surprise you and even hurt of being like, oh, you didn't say Jesus. You didn't say my family. Yep. You said I valued
dogs
or sneakers, or like, that would be like soul crushing. But man, I would have to take an inventory of my life if it was like, it's so
true. It's so simple. Like if you're going to say that you follow Jesus, like people ought to see attributes of who Jesus is in your life. You know what I mean? Like, that's not complicated. It's so true.
Yeah. And what's a good test? How other people view it. What do you spend your money on? Like, show me your bank statement or your credit card statement or whatever, and just be like, oh, dude, you value eating out. Like, that's something you highly value.
Man, Chick-fil-A's really got a grip on your heart.
I know. But it's like, no, but like, I love being with people. And so I love eating out with people. That to me is like a high value. And it's like, that's something I want to continue to have in my worldview. That's something I want to continue to put my money and investment in, is eating with people. I think there's something beautiful about that. Yeah. So I think those are like two good checks of like, hey, tell me what you think I value. And then like, where am I spending my money and time?
Yeah. And you can even trace that back. Like you're saying, hey, like I want to value that. It's because the underlying belief that you believe that people are valuable, right?
Yeah. Huge.
It goes hand in hand. Yeah. Beliefs and values.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Good. So we just did an overarch of worldview. We're gonna get into one of them. So we're gonna talk a little bit about deism. But before we fully dive into that, one of the things that I think has been interesting as I've been looking through deism, or like what deism is, something that I think like a lot of our high schoolers can relate to is this idea of knowing people without really knowing them. So even I was thinking about like people that I follow or people that I watch. I love reality TV. So like even some of that, like the people that I'm watching on TV or on YouTube, like I feel like I know a lot about them because I watch all the videos they post or see their TikToks or whatever. But I don't like really know them at the core. And that's kind of what, to me, deism is. Like, yep, God's like there, but like, like that weird in between of them. So do you think, or why do you think a lot of people just believe that God exists and that's enough? Like, why is that just an easy thing to kind of latch on to?
Yeah. I think because it's so easy to believe in something you see. Like, oh, I know this microphone is real because, like, there it is. Like, it's so easy. It takes up space. It's made of matter. It's existing in time. You know what I mean? So something or someone that's transcendent, that is above our reality and above our, like, physicalness of matter here, seems so just like, that is outside of my box of worldview, that can be really hard when all of a sudden, if I pull that transcendent God into this world, which, like, he did through Jesus, like, that's exactly what he did, and became so personal that we're able to have a relationship with him. But sometimes there's not that, like, tangibleness that just makes it just really hard. And then sometimes it can just be scary. Like, man, a God that, you know, maybe we are responsible to, because he created us and he gave us these gifts and he's given us all these things that we should then be using for our good and his glory. And if we don't do that, like, are we going to have to stand in front of him one day and say, this is why I did this and this is why I didn't do that? Like, that can be really scary. So it's easier just to say, he's up there, he created, he's good, but, like, I'm just going to live my life. But I believe in God. Like, it's easy to say.
Yep.
But sometimes we don't want him here because of the responsibility we have.
And that's the exact thing that I was going to say. It's a lot easier to give a nod to, yes, God is out there. Yes, he affects my reality, all those things. But when you need to start grappling with having a relationship with him, and specifically surrendering to him in a way that it's actually going to change your life, and you're surrendering to the Holy Spirit, changing you from the inside out, like all of these marks of Christianity, that is so much riskier. And all of a sudden you need to kind of let go some of that control. And that's hard. It's much harder. That's
the key word, right? Control.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I want to control these things. It can be scary to, like, surrender and give it to God.
Yeah, I definitely think, like, in high school, I feel like this is where I kind of, like, landed. It's like, yeah, God did all the things, but, like, there was a wall that was happening right at the, like, ooh, this is now a personal relationship. That seems like commitment and scary and have to give up control. So what advice on the other side now of where we've all done that? How do we get people from that? I know God exists, but I don't know if I want the personal relationship or how to get to the personal relationship. How do you get to the other side of that wall?
There's no one better to surrender to. Like, I don't want to have control of my eternity because I'm going to mess it up. Like, I just know Drew enough. I just know me enough. I know how selfish I am. I know some of the wrong decisions I make. I don't want to have control over that. I want to give it to someone who is so loving and gracious and kind and all-powerful and is outside of time and space and is past, present, future, who cares about me enough that he sacrificed his son so that I can ever, like, that's someone that I want to give control to.
Yeah.
Because I know he is powerful enough. I know he's good enough. Someone once told me, man, in life, there are situations you find yourself in that either God doesn't feel good or he doesn't feel like he's in control. And they were like, you need to remember that God's goodness and his all-powerfulness and all-controlling always exist. There's never a time that he's not good, and there's never a time he's not in control. And so that's the kind of God I want to surrender to. So it's just that reminder of, like, who God is, because of how good he is and how loving he is. I can give up control to him, and it helps me sleep at night. It truly, truly does.
Yeah, I think it sounds kind of cliche, but I truly do think that it's a step of faith, because if it's a fear or you're just scared to step into what God has for you, I think probably the root of that is I'm concerned that God's going to lead me somewhere that isn't better than where I am now, or he's going to lead me somewhere where, just isn't good. And actually taking that step, and I hesitate the language of, like, putting God to the test, but, like, God's not afraid of your doubt. And he's going to show himself to be good and show himself to be faithful in your life as you take that step. But yeah, it's okay to just say, hey, like, I'm not 100% sure of this. I just want to take it one step at a time, and God's going to show himself to be good.
Yeah. I was thinking back to what I said a while ago about every time I've been challenged on what I believe. And I remember one of my like youth leaders, like my senior year, probably challenged me the most on this of like, hey, like you're pretty good at like Bible knowledge and like, you know, that stuff, but like, why do you just know it? And then I started doing a lot more of like, hey, what does it look like that God created everything? And in all of that, I just kept seeing like relationships pop up, and I was like, well, clearly this is like this God cares about relationships, and if he cares about relationships so much, like I should probably try, which was a really hard thing because it wasn't my first natural instinct. My first natural instinct was like, just learn all the facts, like be able to say the right answers. And I think that's like where a lot of people are. It's easier just to say the right answers and like coast by than like actually be able to like surrender your heart to someone, because that's scary.
It takes the relationship out of it. Yeah. 100%.
And I don't know if we walk around or our students walk around being like, you know what, I think I'm a deist. It's like, well, okay.
It's definitely not.
Let's sit down and explain that more, because I don't know if I'm fully sure what a deist is. But I think a lot of us are. Mm-hmm. And I think there's that, do I believe that prayer works? Like, if God is a God who's loving and is involved in my life, that means that prayer should work, that he has control over the day-to-day and he can change things that I have no control over. If I don't believe in miracles, I may be leaning towards deism, because what are miracles? That's God working in this world in ways that we just can't explain.
Yeah, well said.
Well, I think there's like an almost a natural instinct that we all like default to, right? Of when my life is going one way, I'm like, oh yeah, like 100% about God. And then like stuff starts to happen and you're like, I'm not too sure anymore. And like some people kind of like flip back and forth between, yeah, obviously they're not gonna be like, and now my deist hat is on. But sometimes like we almost like swing from one view to the other without even knowing it, just because life is changing and the way that we need to view life for some people then changes, because it's easier to protect yourself with one idea than have to like deal with giving up control with the other idea, which I think, I don't know. That's what I've been thinking about a lot.
I think deism is just comfortable Christianity.
Yeah.
Of like, I can believe that God exists. I'll even say that he created the world. I can say he's good.
Yeah.
But I don't want him messing up what I have planned in life. Mm-hmm. I don't want him changing my day-to-day.
I don't want to be accountable to him.
I don't want to be accountable to him. Mm-hmm. That's this like comfortable Christianity. What's uncomfortable is the supernatural. Mm-hmm. And even like saying that word feels a little uncomfortable, but like, no, we have a God that is outside of time and space, that is involved in our everyday and has power and control and can change things, working for our good. And he does those things for us. That surrender can feel really uncomfortable. But man, when you have eyes to see that God is here and he's working, it is just this like beautiful thing of like, it grows your trust, it grows your love, it grows your boldness in telling other people of like, this happened and I have no idea how it happened. And the only thing I can say is that like, God's at work. Yeah. And people are just be like, yeah, I can see how you would say that.
Yeah. And it's important to know too, like we keep underlying the fact that surrendering to God is scary and it might make you nervous and doubts might come up, and all that's true. But it's also true that when you take those steps of faith, like that is when the magic happens. That's when the Holy Spirit really gets to work. And that's one of the things that makes Christianity unique from other worldviews and other religions in a really important way.
Yeah. Don't be scared of it. Mm-hmm. You sleep so much better at night.
Yep.
You really do. Just knowing that like God's in control. I'm being faithful to what he asked me to do. But I ultimately know that like he is in control of it and he loves me and he's working for our good.
Well, that's pretty well said. I feel like
Period.
That's my, if we could drop the mic, that would be the mic drop. So, guys, I hope you join us next week for more conversations on what worldviews look like. So thank you guys for joining us, and tune in next week.